So hi everyone, thanks for joining guys. This is CharlieFrancis Forum Reunion, take two. On this panel today, we got the original cast, or the usual suspects, depending on how you want to look at us. We got Rana Reider out of Florida. Rana, welcome, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, and we got Kyle Upmore somewhere in Asia at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Beijing, China.
Beijing, okay.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Thank you.
No, you're not. Glad to have you here. We also have Herb Sommerfeld, another one of the originals. Herb, are you in Kamloops or Kelowna? I always get mixed up.
Right now, I'm living in Vancouver.
Vancouver, okay, it's even easier. Yep. Okay, and we got PJ Bazell in Paris. Hi, PJ.
Hi.
And of course, we got Mike Hurst, 6 a.m. in Sydney, Australia.
Morning, everybody.
Oh, God. Morning, evening, 4 a.m.
Yeah, good morning.
I was saying you guys are committed. So let's start from the beginning. So I'll start with the order who signed in. So I'll go with Rana, Kyle, and Herb in that order, and PJ and Mike. So Rana, the last time we asked, the first question was, what was the biggest influence of the forum and on CharlieFrancis in your program today?
I mean, for me, it was like seeing everyone like contribute and see how much people were talking about different training methods and different, ways about going things, but figuring out how to individualize stuff, like is what a lot of stuff I took from the forum, like was being able to see what each individual athlete had and how they were able to pull stuff from the forum. Really, it just gave me a lot different perspective, like being a NCAA coach and seeing the way university coaches were doing it, and then you see all these different ideas. That was a huge thing for me.
Yeah, and I think the forum started around February 2001. That's when we first met Charlie in Santa Clarita, and then we heard about the forum, and that's when most of us jumped on. What time frame did you jump on that forum?
Well, I was at Clemson, so I had like Sadani Mothersill and a few athletes during that time, and that's when I was spending the most time recruiting on the road, and so that gave me a lot of time to research and find things to read, and so it was during that time frame I started to try and really kind of evolve into terms of what else was going on with different areas.
Wow. Okay, let's move to Kyle. So Kyle, you want to give us a bit about your journey from CharlieFrancis Forum to Beijing, China? So summarize 20 years of experience in 2 minutes.
Oh man, that's I was started off on CharlieFrancis.com because I was a 14-year-old boy. Somehow I stumbled upon that website. I wanted to get a faster 40-yard dash, and I saw something where Ben Johnson ran a 3.7 40-yard dash, and I was just immature kid just wanting to copy his program, wanting to figure out the quickest way to get faster for football when I was younger. And my mom was a track coach. She was influenced under Clyde Hart, the 400-meter type training, and I was just trying to do anything that I could to not do that style of training, and pretty much. So, and then eventually, the more I started reading into Charlie's website, the more I realized that this is what I want to do when I get older. This is what I want to do whenever this is what I want to go to college for. This is what I want to get educated in. And so, over that time, I spent so much time reading all through the forums, and mostly using it to record my workouts and for a training journal to kind of go through the trial and error, learn from the mistakes of from training, using my own body as as kind of like a way to learn by going through the process. So that's kind of where it led me as a coach today. I kind of got which was really helpful to me because it got me started early on what I wanted to do for my career. So I made a lot of mistakes throughout my early journey that kind of helped me today on learning what to do and what not to do. It's kind of just the wisdom of that I gained more through the website more than anything.
Was there anything in Charlie's program that you got out of it, or someone other coach that really influenced you a lot, that made you who you are?
Definitely quality over quantity. That's kind of the biggest thing. I grew up in the Texas football kind of mindset, and learning that not everything has to be accomplished today, through training, learning that, you just take it one day at a time and do the right type of work. And also, just no excuses. Seeing that, tempo can be done, general fitness can be done in a basement, that it can be done anywhere. If you're injured, you can still use, EMS to train certain parts. That's kind of what I learned more than anything, that there's always a way to get something done, no matter what your excuse is. So, but mostly quality over quantity, though.
No, that's great. Great to hear.
Yeah.
Let's go to Herb. I know. So Herb, you were an athlete first. I believe you were a hurdler. So how did the forum help change you or mold you from the athlete to the coach?
Yeah. Initially, I learned about CharlieFrancis through his book Speed Trap. Someone I saw on the UBC Okanagan Library was like, "You should read this book," because I was having problems with my coach at the time. We were doing 200-meter repeats with walking back rest. That was our speed work. And so I read CharlieFrancis's book, and of course you're gonna Google, who is this CharlieFrancis guy? It's like, oh, Ben Johnson, my hero, my idol from sprinting. You don't connect the athlete with the coach necessarily, and then the lights turned on. So as an athlete, I just started doing actual speed work and putting in actual rest. So it wasn't 200 meters with walk back rest. It was 50 meters with 5 minutes rest. And instantly I saw improvement. And so I just dug deeper into who this CharlieFrancis person was. And then, of course, I was 25. I was coaching athletes, instituting what I'd learned recently on the forum from Charlie's book. And my athletes saw almost immediate success. And when they got faster than me, I decided to, retire as an athlete and move on to coaching.
That's great to hear. It's great to hear. I think I know last week 2 weeks ago we had this call before, but let's just maybe a quick recap. So PJ, was there anything from the forum that you didn't mention 2 weeks ago that you want to bring up? Some thread or some coaching advice or someone that really influenced you a lot to you today?
I thought that's funny to see. Herb, I haven't seen you or talked to you for more than a decade, so that feels funny. I don't remember what I said last week, but yes, more than the method. Well, I remember when I was a young coach, I was losing my nerves, and I was so anxious in the stands, waiting for the gun to shut. And that was my main question: how the coach do to keep their composure while being in the top of the stands. And Charlie was one of to tell me, well, it will come with years. Just be patient, and it finally happened. I'm more relaxed now. I'm always filming, so I'm focused on something else. But that was those kind of questions I was really interested in, and that's not something that is written.
Yeah, good point. How about you, Mike? Back to you, Mike. Was there anything from 2 weeks ago that comes to your mind about the forum? Any big influences? Anything that you really got out of it, that the way you coach today, your athletes?
I think one of the things that, even though Charlie's known for short to long program construct, he was ready to examine any kind of system at all. And when I came up with my concurrent style of programming, he didn't rubbish it. He examined it and encouraged me to keep doing that. And when I had a bit of success, relative success, he was the first person to just, applaud that and just say, you've got to continue doing what you're doing, become a master of your own program, and He was just always encouraging. I never had a negative word from him about anything that I was doing, but he did have a pretty caustic sense of humor, and I really appreciated that. I loved it. And that came across on the site.
Yeah, I know.
That was-
So, yeah, I mean, we are lucky that we met Charlie in person, and we were, we've been helping Charlie with Derek Hansen, helping him with a lot of the videos and seminars. And so his humor really came out. It was really, really something that was his cheekiness, as they say in England. I don't know if they call it in the US or anything, but he was very, very funny for that. Tyrone, how about this over the last 2 weeks? Have you had a chance to think about anything else from the forum, that some stories that anybody really influenced you to your coaching or just methodology? Now, Tyrone's a bit different because he's in Toronto, and you actually are still in touch with several of his family and all the Scarborough Optimist people. So I like your reflection on that.
Well, it's been I was very lucky to be able to be around, because I started training as like an adult, and I'm not a very good athlete, but it didn't matter. I still was able to implement those, like even though I'm not a good athlete, the concepts still work. So I mean, that's kind of interesting because I came to sprinting at like 30 years old, and I was just super unfit, and the reality is I was able to like spectacularly improve where my starting point was. The one thing I would say, and like I know we talked quite a bit last time about the various benefits. The cool thing that I think is we have Rana Reider here today, who's pretty much, in my opinion, like, oh my goodness, like we're talking, if you're counting coaches on one hand, like he's probably the index finger. He's truly
This one?
no index finger. He's probably one of the very top coaches on the planet right now. And one thing I would say is, like, my first great experience with a really elite coach and spending a good amount of time was with Rana, and he came to do a seminar in Toronto, and then I was able to spend a couple of days with him after the fact. And I would say that what was really cool was just being around somebody at that level. When you can surround yourself with someone at that mindset level, like, it's different when you're coaching elite athletes than when you're coaching, on a salary or something like that. Like guys like at that level are like, I mean, it's literally like if your athletes don't run fast, you're in deep trouble. And that's a different level of confidence and a different level of certainty that they have around what they're doing. And to be around that, I think the biggest thing that I got was like, there's a lot of mastery there, right? And just being around that, you get to absorb it, and it makes you feel more confident in what you're doing if you're doing stuff that makes sense. And it also makes you a whole lot more unconfident in the stuff you're doing that maybe you don't know why you're doing, or you're doing it out of like, it's a cultural norm or something like that. So with the site, because we just had no access to elite coaching back then, right? You just couldn't go talk to an elite coach unless you're at a conference or something like that. You could get a really great response from someone who's been there and done it. And, the cool thing about Charlie is that he would give you the response that it may have had a very complicated, reasoning for why he said what he said, but he would give it to you in a way that you could consume and take action on it. And that's like, that's not just being a great coach. It's like being a great, like a great mentor. There's this another level of like a great teaching ability that was there. And so that was the one cool thing that I would say about the site that was great, especially 20 years ago. You just could not easily talk to somebody who had done it at that level. And when you get to spend time in person with people at that level, it's also amazing. And, in a way it's even better because you can ask them any question you want, and you can just watch them work and just absorb everything that's going on. And I really love doing that. It's like one of my favorite things. But that's what I think that was the greatest thing, is that like really it was the first time we were able to like virtually pick a top, performer in the coaching world's brain on a regular basis and like put context to their ideas.
Okay, great. So let's.
And also, can I break in? Because also what I loved about the whole thing was so many people. Like Charlie was the Pied Piper. He would bring everybody in the world to CharlieFrancis.com, and you could talk to anybody that was on there. And sometimes you didn't know who they were, but they were significant coaches in that era or that time. And now you're seeing people like Rana is just like one of the top coaches in history. Sorry to embarrass you. And you've got Tyrone, who's producing the World Speed Summit Series, which is kind of giving everybody an opportunity to listen in and almost talk to, have Tyrone ask the questions on your behalf to great coaches like Rayner and, just a lot of people in a lot of threads of performance, involved with various threads of performance. And so it's kind of like carrying the Charlie. That is part of the Charlie legacy, I reckon. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good. So let's just pretend, okay, so there's 7 of us on the line. Let's pretend we're all in the forum. Let's say the forum still existed, and this is the forum, and the 7 of us are in a chat room. And is there a question? I have a question I can ask, but I want to ask, what question would you ask the group today? And I'll start if you want. So, I'm still training as a master's athlete. My big question is that before mid-March, I was doing speed work. I was doing weight in the weight room, my bench, my cleans. I was doing curved treadmill, getting some really good sessions. The big question is, what have I lost? What will I lose? So can someone answer that? How much conditioning, speed work will I lose now from now until things open up? Any takers?
I'd like to hear from Rana Reider.
So 10 weeks. I've been out of action for 10 weeks. What's my effect now as an athlete?
I mean, I guess if you don't know the whole background of what you did before, it's kind of hard to guess, right? Because some of us do more of a general fitness type of training for long blocks of times, and then as soon as you spike up or as soon as you decide to run fast, the stuff is still there. Like, it didn't go away. If you're coming from a long to short program or some of the terminology, then it's going to take you some more time. Like that's the way, because so we've had to adjust quite a bit. Like, we're inside of a small football speed center or whatever, doing, like, I would guess people would label it as like all speed and power stuff, resisted runs, heavy lifts, plyos. And we got on a kind of a shitty surface the other day, and we did some reactive strength testing. We used the OptiJump. We did, Gym Aware to measure velocities, and I just did that on Monday and Tuesday. So it'd been the first time we tried to sprint. Like I just said, spike up, we're gonna do flying 30s. This is the plan. And people were pretty close to where we were, 10 weeks ago. The surface was different. We didn't do as much volume, but I mean, like Jimmy Vico runs 2.70 meters into a negative wind. And I always, when I do flying stuff, I always have wind gauges. I have all the gadgets out there. So there's no guesswork. And he runs 270 and he's like, yeah, do you want me to go faster? Like, that was it. He just was comfortable. And everyone across the board was pretty solid in terms of what they were doing in terms of max V. So we hadn't done any speed work. We were on grass doing like Charlie type stuff, up and backs with push-ups and sit-ups and stuff in between. And we had stayed in that realm for quite a few weeks. And then as soon as we decided to touch on some speed stuff, it was good to go. So I guess if your background is more general fitness and just those lifts and treadmill work, then I don't think you'd be that far off. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Thanks, Raina. Any other opinions on that? It's okay. We can argue, Raina, right? I mean, it's a forum, right? You can hide it behind your name. Although we all use our real names, right? I mean, PJ Vizel was PJ Vizel. Tyrone was Tyrone. Herb was Herb. I was FJ Lee. I mean, Kyle was Kyle, right? We all used our real names. We didn't hide behind who we were. We weren't afraid. Any other questions? How about other questions? If this was a forum today, what other questions would you have for the panel?
I would have a question.
Sure.
Because if like, cause I feel like I was lucky because my mentors, my high school coach sent me to a coaching clinic when I was 17, right? I got to hear Brent McFarland when I was 17 years old. The next summer I got to meet Randy Huntington and Willie Banks. So this is like, 87, 88. I was 17, 18 years old. And then my coach was Ted Banks, who had won 17 NC2A titles at University of Texas, El Paso. So like those guys did not shy away from telling me I was really dumb in my methods, and they didn't use like marketing. They just wanted people to be better coaches. They wanted people to run fast. And so my question to the panel would be, or Charlie, or these guys would be like, what is your biggest pet peeve with the way people are marketing their stuff in track and field these days?
Any takers? Kyle, you answer that one.
I guess, I work more in strength and conditioning. I don't really work a whole lot with track and field ever since I have started becoming a coach. And there's a lot of things that have just come up in the last few years that I would love to hear, Charlie and other people's take. There's a lot of different things, I guess. I've seen a lot of young coaches, come into this field with all these, these crazy ideas. And, these things come and go. I guess right now I would ask, what do you guys think of the whole RPR thing, the whole, be activated type of guys? I'd probably be asking them more stuff along those lines, I would say. Yeah, just kind of the newest, trends in strength conditioning.
If I can just reiterate about that, or just about in general, like marketing. I mean, I think that it can be dangerous when when you're talking to an audience of young coaches who don't have a big background in what's being, in what they're doing. And if they only have one or two, exposures to different types of, approaches to coaching, right? And people feel the need to really narrow down what they're, they kind of feel the need to narrow down into this like very simple, very consumable system. And like, don't get me wrong, there's value in that. But one of the problems that I think that you find that you'll find is that when you have a coach like that without a lot of experience, all you have is a hammer, and then everything just starts looking like a nail, right? So they have like one or two different ways of doing things, and that's all they've got. And basically, if those things don't work, then it's time to blame the athlete. And that always is something that troubles me.
Yeah, true.
I would say that when we coached, when we talk about a system of training, we're trying to fit the system to the individual, not the other way around. That would be my primary thought there. And I don't see that happening with a lot of the social media. And you coach someone who made the national team, and suddenly you're all over social media like you're the new guru. My God. And what can you say? It's just business. One person was coaching 200 kids. How do you coach 200 kids? I mean, that's crowd control. It's not coaching. It's maybe training. Anyway, but they make it big, and if the dollar is your primary interest, well, good luck to them. At least they're not robbing banks.
Sure. Good question. Any other questions? Herb, any questions for the panel? Anything? No?
Not a question, but a comment in regards to your question here. It's I coach high school boys. That's all I coach. And if they're going to be susceptible to internet gurus, that's the demographic. So when they come to me, I just say, fine, like you can take it or leave it. This is what we're doing. You can walk away if you like. But I don't pay attention to the latest this or that. I'm disconnected. And if I have questions, I'll go to like a Derek Hansen or a Derek Evely. I'm sure if I emailed PJ, he would respond. So, yeah, these boys are coming to me with the latest training all the time, and I just ignore it for the most part. Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts before I move on to the next question? Or PJ, Mike, nothing?
I have a comment regarding the forums. First, there was not many forums at that time. There was CharlieFrancis.com, and then there was also IWF web, forum, which was not much about training. Sometimes it was about training, and then there was Elite Track. But now there's no more forums, and there is a coincidence between Charlie's passing 10 years ago and the advent of social media, Facebook's messengers, later Instagram and stuff, and most of the discussions take place there. But I'm not sure it's discussion, it's just comments. You just comment, right? You're not discussing. Forum is, that's the name of it, it's a forum, and you can discuss and have long conversations. Now you're restrained by the format of the new social medias, such as Instagram, where you just have to comment and try to get more popular and stuff. And I don't see it, I'm talking like an old man, but I don't see it as a good evolution regarding exchange of information and thoughts and debates. There's no more debate. On Twitter, there are some debates, but it gets inflammatory very, very soon. So there's no debate. And then you have haters and stuff. And you didn't have that on forums, actually. You didn't have that.
Yeah, it's true. I have to look back, and the forum was very well moderated. And I remember one year, I swore I spent more time on the forum than I did at work. And it was an obsession, and it was just, and then you write, and sometimes Charlie would write back within like half an hour, right? Respond to you, and who am I? Some Joe Schmuck here, and then yeah, it was just a great place to be. I really, I know I'm being nostalgic here, but I just wish we had something like that today. And it really is hard because there is no platform, there's social media, there's all the trolls, all the evil people, the negative people commenting. Like, I have a YouTube channel, right? And my God, some of these comments, I should delete it, but I don't. But I wonder where they're coming from, upbringing. So, any other questions? Anything else you want? I got a couple of things I want to, maybe talk about, but maybe keep this more form related. Any other topics? No. Nobody?
I love was the discussions about certain athletes, like we were discussing about Maurice Green or Donovan Bailey, or those guys were still running at the time. Well, not Donovan Bailey, but Green, Bolden and stuff. And I would really like to know what Charlie would think about Coleman, because that's the fast starter. It's like the new prototype of very fast starter. Would be so interesting in hearing Charlie, what he's thinking about him.
Yeah. Rana, could you probably extrapolate or guess what he would say about today's starters? No, nothing.
I mean, because I've been looking at Coleman's videos and his information for, I don't know, I guess 2 years, trying to figure out, to be able to beat someone, you got to figure out where they're going to go fast, right? Like, I'm not going to get someone to run 0.5 meters per second faster from 70 to 90 to win. So I have to figure out what he's doing. And then, you have all these technical models, you have all this stuff, and then you look at it, and then the guy jumps out. You see this big jump out on the blocks, like, okay, there's only one guy that's ever done that. You're like, okay, if you could call that guy and be like, okay, how do I make my guys do this? That would be the question. I need to figure out how to make this guy beat this guy. That's it. Like, because I was just looking at the top, 0 to 10 meter times 180, 180 to 10 meters, and you're looking at the different guys and how they get there, and it's so you know, you look at Maurice and I was on a call the other day and then talking about the drive phase and the evolution. And it's like, okay, is that the most, it's more efficient. People are running faster, deeper down the track, but you still look at Ben, you look at Coleman, they're still going. And it's not like Coleman's not falling apart because he spent so much energy to get to 30. He just has some technical flaws at max velocity. So if he cleans up the technical flaws, that jump start, that the angles are not 45 degrees. He's getting out, the shoulders are coming up, but he's going fast. So it's like, okay, I'm spending 2 days a week, spending 3 hours a day with these guys, getting from 0 to 10. This guy just jumps up and sprints down the track and goes faster than anybody else. So I'm like, maybe I'm wasting my time. Maybe I need to go back to something more simple. Like, that's to have a discussion with someone like Charlie and how, you know, things evolved for why did Ben do this? What do you think Coleman does? How to be able to talk to someone like that is interesting for me. Like, that would be a great thing. And that's what I think, like, the younger coaches miss, because there's not as much time to have a conversation. Like, I have a filing cabinet to my right that I have faxes from LSU track and field, from University of Tennessee. Like, I'd call Dan and bother him. I'd call Lauren and bother him. I learned how to use a Broward timing system that the first watch was like this big, from Randy Huntington. Like, so, like, these guys spent the time to kind of teach me and make me understand what was important. And there was, like, you could call them and they would call you back, and you'd have these conversations, and you fax machines. It's like now, like, you call someone, even if I want to call someone now, there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to pick up and have a conversation that will, for one, say, yeah, I think you're doing this wrong. Or, hey, what do you think if I change this? Because you have the science of the research part has dribbled into the coaching part. And so everyone wants to be a scientist now. And I think there is a platform for that, but everyone's not a scientist. I mean, we all know Dan spoke in the way Dan always spoke. And then suddenly everyone's picked up that verbiage, and then now they're marketing stuff. You're like, okay, what does that really mean when you're talking about it? And so I think someone like Charlie would call bullshit on it so quick. So that's my take.
Yeah, I've always wondered what he would say, or maybe he did comment about the Brett Contreras hip thrust device. Was that ever discussed? Kyle, remember anything about that? The hip thrust?
Oh, I don't know if Charlie ever discussed that. I can't recall him ever discussing that right there. But along those lines, though, yeah, like, everybody wants to nowadays. People can't just keep things simple. You know, even medicine balls have to have a measurement on them now, and half the time the data is useless. I mean, what are you going to do with it? I mean, that's what happens is measuring how far you threw the medicine ball. So yeah, that's something that I definitely learned early on, that things do not have to be that complicated. They're supposed to be simple. You're supposed to just, see what happened and move on from there. But people spend way too much time, especially the younger coaches, on these, they on these overcomplicated, technology, I would say. So.
Yes, discussion about hip thrust. It was more about the reverse leg press.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and I remember that everybody was trying to figure out what is this reverse leg press look like in Toronto, and because they wanted to have the same one with the same angle of push and blah blah blah, and actually it was just a simple machine, and they just used the machine that was there in New York, and there was nothing special.
It's still there.
Well,
oh, it is?
Oh yeah,
it's still there.
Same machine. It's been there for like 40 years.
And I remember Charlie said,
"Can I buy it?
Well, if you don't have this machine, just lay on the bench and have someone push on your foot, and it will work. It will do the job." And I've used it a lot because I didn't have any machine anyway. So that's the marketing for you.
I was going to say, I thought that PJ, you used the hip thrust at some points, or tested it at least.
Yes, but athletes felt uncomfortable with this movement. So we use reverse leg, manual hand reverse leg press, which makes the job.
Yeah.
We don't have any metrics from this, but okay.
It's not measured, man.
Well, it's interesting. I remember recently reading somebody who had kind of analyzed the reverse. I guess it was kind of like, I believe it was like a reverse leg press, and then talked about how there was a lot of, I guess, a lot of more hamstring activation and less glute activation than they suspected. But I think when you do it like that manually with the hand, it's completely different with the hand resistance. I used it with my athletes too, because like one of my guys, this is a guy who Rana actually worked with a little bit when I met up with him a few years ago. And that guy just couldn't lift. He would just get so sore from any kind of like real lifting. So we did a lot of med ball throws and stuff like that, but he could do like that kind of low level stuff. And it seemed to like be completely something that he really kind of looked forward to and got a lot out of. But I don't know why. So if anybody wants to pitch in there, I'd love to hear.
But the thing with hip thrust, I've had a session with this hurdler. She's from Finland, Anni-Mari Korte. She's very thin, she's small, but she probably has the world record for her body weight. She can hip thrust 200 kilos. So one day we were in Barcelona and had a session with her, and she wanted to work her glutes differently. And I suggested she does single leg hip thrust, and she couldn't do anything. She couldn't even lift her butt. So 200K with legs, nothing, zero with one leg. So that was a good starting point for her.
Oh, okay. So speaking of technology, since we're all pretty technical, I think most of us are technical savvy, except for Mike maybe. What what are we using for video analysis? Are we using Dartfish, Coach's Eye? How are we producing kinograms? Anybody? Herb? Anybody? PJ?
I've used Photoshop for years.
Photoshop?
Yeah.
Anything?
I just film on iPhone and throw it up there on the website, the Fast Track page, and then we talk about it. We sort of stew over different things, and we decide whether to mess with it or not. You know, some stuff, genetics just overrules mechanics, and you just have to let it be, I think. But sometimes, you know, if you got someone with a real lazy action, then you can. It's just you can pick it up, and mostly you'll have seen that. But sometimes I like to, on the advice of Dan, film from every side and from front and behind, and that then you can see how it works. And if you're still in doubt, I send it to Dan, and he's fantastic, supporting, you know, in the way that Charlie was. And then I will put the videos across to our, if I think there's an issue there, I'll send it to our chiropractor, Nicholas Miller, and I'll just say, look, I think there's an issue here with this particular side, and can you sort this out? I'm going to send this athlete to you. And he's pretty damn good. He'll sort things out for us. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a biomechanist. I'm a garden variety biomechanist. So,
yeah. Rana,
can I just say one of the things, just quickly?
Yeah.
One of the things that was great about Charlie is that he kept it simple. And the simpler you can say something, the more people you can involve and you can reach. And he was never pretentious about that. And for years in Europe, from about 85 through to at least 88, I used to catch up with him in Europe and record, you know, with his consent, obviously, record questions and on tapes, and then I'd bring these tapes home, and was still listening to them years later, and finding new information out from what he was saying, because even though it was simply phrased, the concepts were what was important, and I probably hadn't reached that level where I really understood the importance of some of what he was saying. But thankfully, I recorded it, and thankfully, he's recorded so much of that on the products that you can get through CharlieFrancis.com. There's a lot of good stuff on there, still valid today, more than valid today. It cuts through the bullshit.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Rana for triple jump. How do you analyze Christian's triple jump after? I mean, he comes down pretty quickly in a runway.
I use Dartfish, but like the one thing for me is I have no problem asking for advice, sending video somewhere. I have a guy that is a British guy, Dr. Paul Bryce, that I've worked with for years and years. And so I'll send videos to him if he can't come over. I sit down and watch it myself. I think because of Randy's influence over the years, like I became like a gadget master. Like I have every high-speed camera. I own OptiJump. I have Lavig. I have GymAware. I mean, you name it, like I have it. And so for a long time, I think I was paralyzing some of my athletes. And so the last couple of years, I'll film every session, but I don't allow them to look at it as much. Like I'm trying to get back to letting athletes kind of feel and learn a rhythm. I think because of there's so much more coaching going on in terms of words being used, athletes are almost paralyzed. They're forgetting that their whole goal is to beat people. And so, I have a girl the other day that I know she can be world class, and she ran slow. I was like, that's just really slow. Like, yeah, but how did it look? I'm like, it looked like you ran slow. Like, it's really pretty if you're, a model, but like, it's not fast. So like, stop thinking about if it looked good. I'll tell you if it looked good, because it's going to tell me on this damn clock. And so like, but I use Dartfish a lot. I have since, I don't know, 2003, I think. But a lot of it is for me. And then if I find something that's really off, I'll show them. If I find something that's really good, I'll show them. But the whole, every run, look at it, have a long discussion. If you did a 20-meter run, you ran 3 seconds. Why am I having a 5-minute conversation after every run? I sound like a grumpy old man now, don't I? Wow.
No, this is really good stuff, Rana, and I think it's especially as someone who started. I didn't start coaching with athletes with potential to run decently fast until I was in my 30s, but and like I went through all the stages of any coach who you're going to start out by kind of like wanting this perfect program. And then you're going to realize the program isn't going to work because your athletes can't, life gets in the way or someone gets sick and you can't do what's on the paper. But it's really interesting to hear you and like, I'd love to hear from Mike and PJ and Herb as well. And Kyle too. And Kyle and I have a funny history because I met Kyle through the Charlie Francis forum and I ended up posting, I never mentioned this before, Jimson. Sorry to get off track, but I posted this comment in the forum. I was like, hey, does anyone know anyone in Austin, Texas who coaches? And then Kyle responded to me. He was working with some coach down there and he's like, hey, this guy's like wants to come down for the summer. I was like, I was a teacher and I'm like off for 8-9 weeks. So Kyle shoots me a message. He's like, hey, I know this guy. He's coaching me. I'm like, hey, I'm thinking of coming down. Can you put me in touch? So me and Kyle ended up training together that whole summer. He was like, I don't know, 17 or something at the time. I'm like 31.
Yeah, that's right.
We ended up training together. That's how we got to be friendly. And I was down there for 2 summers training. It was really cool to see such a young guy like Kyle just being so curious and so passionate about sports performance. And the other part was like he does it all. It's like he's trained as a sprinter. I remember when he built his own gym in a storage locker.
That's right. Yeah.
Texas. Like, this guy is he's extreme, and I love that about him. Yeah, it's just like, we met. I ended up meeting so many good people through the site, like Mike and like everybody has kind of a common language about it, because I know all these people that had read a lot of stuff there. But anyways, I totally got off track there. But it's like super interesting about how coaches are always like kind of evolving their process, and it really, like, to me, it's for someone who's like Rana, who's been doing it a long time and started very young. I'm always really interested in hearing like his latest thoughts on how much feedback to give, or like how much do you correct a perceived technical flaw versus how much do you let it go and just kind of let the athlete find themselves. The last couple of years I was coaching, and maybe I can throw this question out there to all of you guys. I had these 2 high school girls that I worked with. They couldn't be more different. One was like really athletic, pretty explosive, hockey player, so not a great mover. Her body she didn't move that great. The other was like kind of a gifted person, good student, a little more shy kind of thing. And I didn't intervene that much with their technical stuff because I wanted to test and see if I was just breaking people. I guess I would throw this out to everybody. What's your current take on how much we should intervene technically, when it comes to athletes? And maybe we could start off with Herb.
Well, I deal primarily with high school athletes. So what I do is I will front load a lot of the information. If we're doing starts, I will take them through a whole bunch of stuff. And then as they're practicing, I might give them one cue that they work on, that they focus on for the whole practice, keeping in mind that at that age, most of the issues are going to work themselves out as they get stronger. So the more I coach, the worse it might get. Keep your head down. That's the one they all, should I keep my head down? It's like, don't worry about it. You're not strong enough to keep your head down right now. So I'm very minimalist when it comes to coaching, but I will front load a whole lot because I coach like 60 athletes at a time, coach or train. So it's tough. And if I can just comment on the technology, I'll use video maybe once a week with one athlete if they're just not getting it. And most of the time that's because they just don't believe me, like they don't trust me. They think they're pulling their toes up. Here's video evidence, but otherwise that's minimal as well. Yeah.
I know for me, I use the 3 method. I always say one thing they're doing right. So you compliment them on something. Then you say the thing they're doing bad or wrong. And then the third thing is, how do you correct it? So good, bad, correct. It used to be more. I used to do 3, 3, 3. I used to do 3 things and 3 things. But then I found that people couldn't handle 3 things. So you just do one thing, put your heel closer to your butt, and that's it, backside mechanics, and that's it. But yeah, but always, the younger they are, the more they need a compliment. If you just go harsh on your athlete saying, man, you're sitting down too much, that doesn't work. Today, with people and kids being so sensitive to negative comments, you have to start with a compliment, and then you go to the negative, and then correct.
Yeah. Can I just add quickly? Yep. And it depends on the athlete, because I have some athletes, if I give them 2 cues in a week, they're paralyzed, and then other athletes can handle a whole lot more. Like I have a couple of athletes, I won't mention names, they're twins. They're extremely talented, but they'll be knee up with the same side arm up if you give them too much information. So I almost don't coach them at all. I just give them exercises that might take them through the motion without them having to think about it.
But I don't know, it must be hard, especially I guess for Rana. I mean, you have an international group. Now you got, the Chinese whose English is not their first language and they're very reserved, right? And then you have the Americans, you got a British, and then there's the Dutch, the people I mean, I don't know how you handle multiple personalities, multiple cultures, but
I
my
mean,
hat's off to you.
my personality is like you said, a positive thing. Like if someone does, they get used to this at first. They're like, he's not coach isn't saying anything, because if it's okay, I'm just quiet. Like just because I'm not going to waste any energy. Like it looked okay. If I need to talk to you, I'm going to let you know. The Chinese are actually pretty coachable. Like like the language barrier sometimes is a problem, but for me, they're pretty coachable. But I think it's because they're with an international group. It's not just in China. Like Randy being in China, and I was there for short blocks of time. Like I don't know how he does it, but like I sent PJ some video the other day. It's like I was going to share with him some stuff with Jimmy, but we've been going since November with Jimmy, and just this last week I got to the point where I could adjust his blocks and make him understand where I wanted him during the set position and acceleration. And so however many weeks that is, 5-6 months, we've been working on just getting in a position, because we know, Jimmy can fly when he's upright running, but if we can be a little bit closer at 20 meters, we'll be good to go. And it took that many weeks to get to that point. And the language barrier, like if you're getting people and showing them where you want them, that's a pretty universal thing, right? And running, if you're showing them and actually touching their foot and touching their leg and actually showing them where you want it to move, then it's a different, for me, that's the way I teach. I'm pretty hands-on, but in terms of positive, negative, like if it's bad and it's bad for weeks and weeks and weeks, it becomes pretty explosive, and it's not clean enough to record on a Zoom call. But yeah, that's the way I coach. That's my personality. And I did an interview years ago with someone, British media, and I said they're not coming for my personality, and that comes up all the time. Like this, like I'm the same. I'm always the same. I'm the youngest of 5 boys in a small house, and this is my personality. And when I meet with the athlete before they come and they think they can handle it, I'm pretty upfront. Like, this is how I coach. This is how I teach. And this is the way I want things. If you don't think you can handle not being spoken to when you're doing stuff okay, then I'm not the coach for you. So,
good point.
I teach at an all boys. Sorry, I was going to say I teach at an all boys Catholic school, so I'm 100% hands off. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say I can do that. I was going to say I don't coach kids, so I can do stuff a little bit different.
I'm going to stop the recording now. So thank you very much.